Thank you. Thank you so much. The focus of my research project for the capstone project was to focus on our re-accreditation. And as an organization, every 5 years approximately, we are revisited by our friends at the CCNE, and they look at our program and evaluate how we're doing as a program, and so that's what I'm looking at here with our research. Just a brief history of the program. It's kind of focused in 3 areas. There's a master's in nursing practitioner, master's in education in nursing, and then also a master's in nursing administration, and that's an MBA focus. And there's a core credit of 27 hours, and then you see the breakdown there of how the other MSN programs differentiate in the time that they're invested in the different additional courses or clinical hours. To this date, 4 cohorts have actually completed the program and the didactic courses and are completing either capstone projects or pursuing their national licensure exam. 7 cohorts are currently active. Cohort 11 just started a couple weeks ago. 25 students graduated as of 2014. There are currently 184 students currently involved in the program. And back when I started with the program, we were a program that was focused in Michigan, and we had a few students that came over from that state south of us in Ohio. Go Blue, right? We're going to hold to that. But you can see here with the current research, the current data, of how the program has grown and really grown nationwide. And so now up to about 18 different states that are being reflected in the program. This is our nursing model that our program is built around, and the piece that we like to really focus on is that core of the faith in Jesus Christ and being able to integrate that faith into our learning, but also into our practice, where we're really being Jesus with skin on. And people, when they come into a clinical environment, they're pretty much at their most vulnerable point in their life. And so that's an opportunity to utilize these different resources to really impact them and to touch their life, not only physically and work towards their healing, physically, emotionally, relationally, but also spiritually. And that's a thing that I really value about the program here with Spring Arbor. Founder of our discipline was Florence Nightingale, and she was kind of known as the Lady of the Lamp. And I don't think it's an accident that incorporating this faith in our learning is reflected in the part where Jesus says, "You're the light of the world." And so being light in people's darkness, in their darkest hours, I don't think it's an accident that the two are related, and that makes a perfect fit for who we are as Spring Arbor University. These components form our framework that really are the components that go together to create the different aspects of what the nursing program is about. There's the SAU MSN program. There's the AACN Master's Essentials, which kind of set the standards of what has to be taught, what students, what criteria they need to meet to perform, to function, to graduate, and actually be successful in their career. But there's also the quality and safety educational nurse competencies that come around, things like patient-centered care, teamwork, and collaboration. And the unique thing when I looked at all of these different frameworks that really aren't connected, they really kind of come together and dovetail nicely together and then fit through our SAU concept. And that SAU concept really becomes a filter for us to be able to evaluate how our program's doing. Are we meeting our standards? Are we meeting our expectations and how the program has been designed? So the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education, the CCNE, is the organization that we work with to do our accreditation. And they basically look at these 4 standards: our mission and governance, institutional commitment and resources, curriculum and teaching, and then assessment and achievement of the programmatic outcomes. And for my project for the MSN program, my focus was on this standard for looking at our outcomes. And so we looked at the standards. We looked at the expectations, the CCNE, and we wanted to see how are we doing with meeting that with a self-study that we have to produce to move forward with this re-accreditation. We looked to examine the presence of how the SAU concept was evident in the curriculum as well as the faculty who were teaching in the program. And then we wanted to identify what are our areas of strength and also areas of improvement that we could look at to enhance the MSN program. So a convenient sample of 63 graduates who had successfully completed the program was our population setting. The methodology was to develop a quantitative survey that was comprised of 15 questions, and the tool that we used was a monkey survey. The reason we chose that was it's been a reliable tool, it's an easy tool to fill out, it's accessible for people to fill out, and the data can be stored and it can be exported into a lot of different other Excel or other research software that you can really extrapolate and do a lot more with the data. The one thing that might be a limitation to it is, or a risk is, since we live in the computer culture and online, there is a risk that it could be hacked. But that's very remote. The other thing that is really important here is there is a survey data bank of questions that it automatically will populate, but it also enables you to create questions that are uniquely designed to what you're looking for. And so the one possible negative would be if people are not good with creating good questions, good survey questions, that could be a risk for not getting a good survey. So now I just want to focus on some of the data that we found from the respondents. One of the questions that we wanted to look at is, did they attend a refresher course in preparation for their national certification exam? And the interesting thing is 39.29% said yes and 39.39% said no. The other piece of that slice of that pie were resources that people looked at, such as Fitzgerald written books that they had kind of looked at, but they didn't really attend an actual refresher course. When asked the question, the classes I took provided me with the tools and resources I needed to do a good job in my current employment. Overwhelmingly, 69.23% said they agreed with that, and gave very good feedback in the comments of how they felt the courses prepared them to really succeed in their roles. Another important piece of data we wanted to find that helps us identify as the program moves forward is, where are our graduates ending up? Where are they working at? What settings are they looking at? The majority of them ended in outpatient care settings. Now, that's kind of a overarching, that could be ambulatory, that could be an urgent care kind of clinic. There are acute care environment people represented in that, but that was kind of on the lower end of where they were at. The second highest was in our clinical education. So I think when you look at the program and you see where the bulk of students are really kind of choosing to focus, that's a good response there. And then you see the clinical clinical administration was the last highest level, which kind of reflects the three aspects of our program and where the emphasis is. Spring Arbor University respects students who come from different religious backgrounds while still holding true to their religious tradition. I think this is an important piece of information for us as we look at, are we staying true to our principles while we respectfully allow other peoples from different faiths? I know in teaching the courses I've taught with the program, there have been a couple students who've been from the faith tradition of Islam. And they've added a whole new value to that whole learning environment as we've talked about the whole spiritual assessment of someone. So I think this really speaks to that we're doing a good job of holding up our standards of who we are as a faith community and representing Jesus, but appreciating those who come from other traditions that can help us with our program as well. The classes I took reflected the mission and values of Spring Arbor University. Overwhelmingly, 100% of the respondents agreed with that statement. I could see the Spring Arbor University concept reflected in the courses I took and in the faculty who taught them. This again, remember when I showed you the framework slide of how all of those three aspects kind of fit together and really come through that filter of our SAU concept. I think we're still being true to who we are as a university and as an organization as we share the mission of who Jesus is. I have confidence in the Spring Arbor University MSN leadership and faculty. Again, overwhelmingly agree and support that. Overall, the rating would be a 7.24%. There were a couple individuals who skipped this question. They did not choose to explain why they didn't answer that. So that's kind of hard to identify why they chose to answer in that way. At the end of the survey, I left two open-ended questions for people to respond to. And the one was, what are the most successful aspects, and then growth opportunities. I took all of the responses from the respondents and created a Wordle, which kind of helps you look at visually what are the biggest things. And I'll talk about here in a moment what those are. Here are some of the growth opportunities for us as well. So in the findings, and I'm wrapping up my presentation with this, the thing that stood out overwhelmingly with those comments was relationships matter. The people overwhelmingly really appreciated and supported the fact that that residency time together at the start or the midpoints of their program really kept them dialed into the faculty and dialed into each other as they do group work. There was a desire for more coordination and connection with the clinical rotations, more communication from the faculty, and a desire to enhance further the pharmacology and pathophysiology courses. Limitations of the study, it was a rather small sample size in the scope of things. The survey period was a relatively short period of time, and there was a limited financial budget to perform the study. My recommendations for the future is to look at a midpoint survey using the ProQual tool that looks at the professional quality of life of students. It helps them to identify stressors and how well they're dealing with those things. Some of these students have families, jobs, working full-time, so it can really help support the university to reach out to students who may be identified who are struggling in the program. Maybe possibly look at developing clinical preceptor affiliations with the organizations that the students are working at. Establish a curriculum committee with student representation as well as a grievance algorithm for students who might come across issues that they want to highlight and raise. My one big learning from doing this was when I asked the question, did you take a licensure exam? I didn't parse that out and separate that out with the different three foci. And so, and if I were to do this over again, I would ask the different question of each group. I would also consider using reverse scored questions, because reverse scored questions really help enable your respondents to helps you as the researcher understand, are they understanding the questions and really what you're asking for? And then establish a consistent pattern for evaluating the program in the future. Any questions?
There were a number of questions where people were given the opportunity to say whatever they wanted.
Yes.
Was there anything striking that came out of that?
I think the biggest thing was in that area, if I might just back up here, to this growth or improvement opportunities here. The biggest thing came out with the clinical assistance with finding clinical locations where they could do their hours for their clinical work. That was one of the big responses that was highlighted. There were some changes with some professors that happened midstream with the program, and that created a little bit of confusion for them communication-wise. That was one other thing. But the other piece, and the program has really worked hard to make some changes with this. The other last piece was with the capstone project. In the past, it's kind of been left in the very end and kind of given us the opportunity to kind of focus on that as you're nearing the end of your curriculum and your coursework. Now, the leadership has really taken a more proactive approach and introducing that much earlier as they're in their first year. So they're beginning to work on that consistently and not just kind of feel that crunch at the end to do that all in a short amount of period of time. So I think that's going to help the caliber of the capstone projects that are being produced. I would also maybe even propose building a relationship with some of the MSN students and BSN students and having them collaborate on that so that it's developing more of an interest as the program grows. Good question.
Was this actually turned in as part of our submission?
What do you mean for accreditation?
Thank you. Thank you.